1998 through 2011 Volkswagen Beetle fuel pump replacement. I'm Brian Eslick from How to Automotive. I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of replacing the fuel pump and fuel filter. Here are the part numbers for the fuel pump and fuel filter that we're going to be installing in this video. I will link it up in the description. So the fuel pump is located under the rear seat of this vehicle. So what we're going to do is get back here and we're going to lift upwards on the seat like this, and then you're going to rotate the seat forward. And it kind of has a little hinge on it, and you'll rotate it forward like this. I also recommend that you roll the windows down on the vehicle for ventilation. Now on the passenger side, there's going to be a little black cover here that has 3 screws. We're going to remove the 3 mounting screws. Then we're going to take a screwdriver and pop the cover off. It can be glued down. Once you get the cover off, then we're going to disconnect the electrical connector. To do that, you're going to push downwards, and then you're going to pull the little plastic tab right there, and then pull the connector off. Now we're going to unplug the fuel lines. There's a little tab at the bottom of them. You push the tabs like this, so you can use a fingers or a screwdriver and push the tabs, and then you're going to lift the lines upwards. And you want to be careful. There could be a little bit of pressure, so do it slowly. On this particular case, this car was a crank, no start. Fuel pump did not run, so we really don't have any pressure. So push the lines and disconnect them. Now you can tuck the lines out of your way. So there's 2 types of retainer rings that hold the pump in. One's made out of plastic, one's made out of metal. This one's made out of metal. If you have the plastic one, it requires a spanner wrench. If you have the metal one like we do here, what we're going to do to get it out is we're going to use a punch or a screwdriver or a pry bar that you can strike the end of it. And there's a little lip on the edge of the ring here, and you're going to hook the edge right here, and you're going to tap the end of it with a hammer and drive the ring counterclockwise until it pops off. So I just struck the end of the pry bar about 2 or 3 little whacks, not very hard, and it drove it counterclockwise and popped off. So now you can use a little screwdriver and pop the seal up, and it kind of gets glued in there. You also want to pay attention to how the pump is orientated into the fuel tank here, and so you want to lift your lines out of the way, and you can lift your pump up. You want to have a bucket nearby or something to catch the fuel, because the pump retains a little bit of the gas and it will leak out everywhere. So you want to also have a bunch of rags nearby to clean up any spills right away as soon as you get it out. So you're just going to lift the pump straight up. And when you get it about halfway out, you want to angle it to the side like this to help clear the fuel level sending unit that's hanging down there, and then you're going to set it directly into the bucket you have standing by. So my fuel pump module did not come with a new fuel level sending unit, so we need to take it off and transfer it over. To do that, first we need to take the wires off of it, and there's a little tab right here. So you can use a pick tool, and you're going to push this little tab, and then you're going to pull the wires out of the connectors. You want to keep track of which wire went to which, so when you put it back in on the new one, you have an idea. And then there's going to be a tab at the back. You're going to flex up slightly on the 2 corners, and then you're going to slide the sending unit off like this. Now you're going to transfer it directly over to your new fuel pump. So you'll slide it into the little grooves and slide it upwards until it locks into place. Those little tabs will flare over little clips at the end. So slide it up until it locks. Now we're going to put the electrical connectors back on. So the wire colors on the new sending unit are different than the ones on the old one. So what I did was looked at the electrical connector on the old one and determined which wire went to which. So I knew the green wire went to the bottom, so I followed, in this case it was a blue wire, so I followed it over and installed it in the same position. So you'll slide the wire in, and you'll push it in until it clicks. You'll hear a little click, and you want to give it a little pull to make sure it doesn't pop back off. Now you're going to slide the opposite wire into the next port here and slide it in, make sure it doesn't come off, and then you want to secure the wire in the little plastic grooves there, and make sure all the slack is up towards the top. That way the sending unit doesn't come in contact with it. Now you're going to take your fuel pump seal here, and you're going to slide it over the new fuel pump. You want to make sure the fatter portion of the seal is facing upwards. Then you need to reassemble the pump here. So you're going to press them in together until they click. Now the new pump is ready to reinstall into the gas tank. Before we reinstall it, we want to wipe down the mating surface here of any debris. So use rags, and be careful not to knock the dirt and debris into the fuel tank, and get it as clean as you can possibly get it. Now we're ready to reinstall the pump. You're going to install it at an angle, putting the float in first. And once the float goes in and clears, then you can angle it straight downwards. Now the fuel pump seal here needs to be repositioned onto the fuel tank. And there's a little groove that it sits in, so you have to work with it and use your fingers to tuck it into the groove on the tank itself. And then once you get it secured on the tank all the way around, then we can lower the fuel pump down into position. It takes a little bit of finesse to get the seal to sit in the groove right. Now that the seal is installed, we want to make sure that the pump is lined up in the right position. There's a little tab on the bottom here, if you look, and it only goes in one way, so you want to make sure it's lined up, and you're going to push straight down until the pump is fully seated into the fuel tank. Then you're going to reinstall the fuel ring here. So you're going to put it down, and then there's little grooves that it catches on. Then you'll make sure it's on all four corners. There's little grooves where the metal ring catches on. So you'll insert it, and then you'll use your pry bar or your punch, and you'll lightly tap it. So as I'm doing this, I'm rotating where I'm hitting the ring. So I'll move the pry bar to a different spot and hit it at slightly different angles to help rotate it around into position. And once you get it fully locked into position, then you can reinstall the fuel lines. They just press on straight down, and then you can plug in the electrical connector and just push it on until you hear it click. Give it a little pull to make sure the lines and the connector doesn't come back off. After that, you can reinstall the top cover here with the 3 screws. Then you can flip your seat back down and then push it straight down until it locks into place. So now I cycled the key on to make sure that the fuel level sending unit was working properly and nothing was wrong with that. Now I went ahead and put my car up on the hoist. If you're doing this at home, you're going to jack up the rear of the car, use floor jacks and jack stands to get it up as high as you can. Now here the fuel filter is on the passenger side. Just to the front of the right rear tire, there's a metal brace that's right here. You can remove it or you can try to work around it. I'm going to work around it. We're going to get started by removing the fuel lines. So there's little tabs, just like the ones on the fuel pump. You're just going to press those and then pull the fuel line off, both front and back. I'm going to use the screwdriver to do it. And then once you get the fuel lines popped off, the back one's going to drain quite a bit. So you want to have a bucket nearby to catch the runoff fuel. The fuel line closest to the front of the car, the tab was on top. So I used a hook tool like this to press the tab. And then I push the line off. Once you get the 2 lines off, it's going to drain quite a bit of fuel, so you want to have a bucket nearby and ready. Once you get those off, now the next step is to loosen up the hose clamp going around the fuel filter. So you want to get it really loose. You want to make sure it has a lot of slack, and also the park brake cable here is mounted into a little bracket here. You pop that out, and then there's a fuel line here that goes across. You want to pop that out of the little bracket on the fuel filter. Now you can pull the fuel filter out towards the front here. Once you got it out, you want to look at the old fuel filter and put the new fuel filter in the same direction. There's a flow, so it wants to flow from the tank towards the front of the engine. So you want to transfer over this little plastic ring. It just slips off and transfer it over to your new fuel filter. Now you're going to slide it back up into position. And once you got it back up into position, I like to start the rear fuel line first because that's the one that's always draining. So go ahead and push that on. Then you can go ahead and line up your hose clamp here with the plastic ring going around the fuel filter and tighten that up. And once you get that tightened up, then you can go ahead and put in all the fuel lines and the park brake cable here, and then clip on the front fuel line here. So you're going to put that back into position and then push it on and until he fully seats. And you want to make sure you give them a little tug to make sure that these lines are fully secure and not going to pop back off. Now you're ready to lower the vehicle back down and start her up and make sure that you have no fuel leak. I will link up the fuel pump and fuel filter. I also wanted to mention that I have a tool store, so I'll put a link in the description of the video for the tool store. I'm Brian Eslick from How to Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos, encourage you to subscribe, invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this. I also like to thank you again for watching.